Today's top stories at NBR: new legislation to enable the targeting of individuals to put more pressure on Russia. Whakatane Mill greenlit for expansion. Proposed takeover offer for Blue Sky Meats. And there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR Today, 100% subscriber funded and proudly brought to you by you, as is every story at nbr.co.nz. It's Monday, March 7th. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks again for joining us. Court decisions in the long-running directors' duties lawsuit following the collapse of construction company Mainzeal are profoundly wrong and have created a minefield for directors, which undermines the likelihood of people taking on directorships, the Supreme Court has heard. A long-awaited Supreme Court date featuring appeals from both the former directors of the failed construction company and its liquidators, BDO, began today, Monday, being heard before Chief Justice Helen Winkleman and Justices William Young, Susan Glazebrook, Mark O'Regan and Ellen France. The Supreme Court hearing follows the Court of Appeal last March, ruling 4 directors, Chief Executive Richard Yan, Chair and ex-Prime Minister Dame Jenny Shipley, and Peter Gom and Clive Tilby, breached the Companies Act for reckless trading ahead of its collapse in 2013, owing creditors more than $111 million. New legislation will enable the government to target individuals and companies connected to the Russian government in an effort to put more pressure on Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. Until now, New Zealand did not have a targeted autonomous sanctions regime in place that allowed it to impose extensive sanctions. But the Russia Sanctions Bill will go through Parliament under urgency this week so further sanctions can be imposed. Until now, the government has relied on United Nations-imposed sanctions to be used against states engaging in illegal war. But Russia, which is a member of the UN Security Council, had used its veto to stop such sanctions being imposed. And fund manager turned global human rights campaigner Bill Browder has issued a plea for New Zealand to introduce legislation allowing sanctions against Russian individuals responsible for the war in Ukraine. Browder, whose book Red Notice documented Russian corruption and the murder of his lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, drove the passing of the US Magnitsky Act in 2012, allowing the government to sanction individuals involved in the murder. "We're in a crisis. Something needs to be done," he said today, Monday, on a conference call with New Zealand MPs and media. Facing closure last year, the new owners of Whakatane Mill have greenlit an expansion to lift capacity by 40% at the paper processing plant. The mill, the Bay of Plenty Town's largest employer, almost closed in early 2021 after its Swiss owner began sourcing material from a lower-cost provider. It was purchased by a consortium of overseas and local investors in May 2021, led by wealthy Irish paper and packaging businessman Dermot Smurfit. The expansion will lift production of paperboard from 150,000 tonnes a year to around 210,000 tonnes. Vodafone New Zealand has hired bankers from Barrenjoey and UBS to conduct a market engagement process for the separation and sale of a stake in its passive cell tower assets. The Infratil and Brookfield-owned telecommunications operator announced the move this morning, Monday morning, saying it was the largest tower portfolio in New Zealand, currently comprising around 1,487 wholly owned mobile towers across the country. Passive assets include the physical tower, masts or poles, the foundations and fencing, the land rights, access and service rooms. Sheep meat producer Blue Sky Meats has disclosed a proposed takeover offer at a hefty premium from interests associated with its chair Scott O'Donnell and director Andrew Lowe. Shares in Blue Sky were halted from trading on the unlisted market today, Monday, followed by the announcement of a proposed full takeover offer from Southern Lamb Investments Limited. Shares in Blue Sky last traded at $1.30, valuing the company at $15 million. The indicative takeover price is $3 a share in cash, conditional on reaching 50% acceptance. The bidder, Southern Lamb, is owned 50-50 by interests associated with NBR listers O'Donnell and Lowe. The full details of those stories and more are at nbr.co.nz right now. Tomorrow at NBR, in his weekly column, Martin Devlin argues the case for freeing up sports grounds so they can get back to business properly. While in our weekly entrepreneur slot, Scotty Baragwanath talks about blue frogs and expanding into the highly competitive Australian cereal market. I'm Paul Brennan. Join me again from around lunchtime tomorrow for the morning's NBR Trending Stories. Then again right here from 5:30 for another NBR Today.